Foundation Framework, Genre Mastery and Narrative Architecture. Welcome to the Ultimate Alpha King Script Writing Masterclass. If you've ever wondered why certain paranormal romance stories grip readers from the very first line and refuse to let go, you're about to discover the precise formula that transforms ordinary tales into addictive emotional experiences that readers crave. She didn't know that the man standing beside the execution block was the most powerful alpha in 7 kingdoms. She didn't know that his amber eyes had been searching every face in the crowd for her. And she certainly didn't know that the moment their gazes locked, her life as a nobody was over forever. This is the power of the Alpha King hook. 3 sentences, dramatic irony, instant emotional investment. Notice how we establish the protagonist's ignorance, hint at destiny, and promise transformation. This pattern works because it creates immediate tension between what the reader knows and what the character understands, making every moment electric with possibility. But hooks are just the beginning. The genre that dominates romance today is paranormal romance, specifically the fated mate subgenre featuring alpha wolf shifters. This isn't urban fantasy with romantic elements. This is romance with supernatural flavouring, where the central relationship drives every plot point and the happily ever after is never in question. The psychological appeal runs deeper than escapism. Fated mate stories satisfy the human desire for unconditional acceptance, for someone who sees our true worth when we cannot see it ourselves. The alpha dynamics provide safety and protection fantasies, while the supernatural bond removes choice anxiety. Destiny has already decided. The only question is whether the protagonist will accept what fate offers. The 5-act structure is your blueprint for emotional manipulation. Act 1 takes 15 to 20% of your story and establishes the protagonist's wounded state while introducing the dramatic first encounter. Think survival mode, borrowed clothes, servant positions. The male lead appears powerful but unnamed. The hook creates immediate recognition of destiny, even as the protagonist resists. Act 2 consumes 20 to 25% and escalates through identity revelation and vulnerability exchange. Domestic proximity scenes build intimacy, while external threats create urgency. This is where resistance meets growing trust. Act 3 occupies 18 to 22% and complicates everything through major crisis testing the relationship. The protagonist's worthiness gets questioned, external dangers manifest, decision points arrive, run or trust. Act 4 delivers the climax in 15 to 20% with public claiming scenes and antagonist confrontations. This is your triumph moment, where declarations ring out before witnesses and protection becomes fierce and visible. Act 5 resolves everything in 20 to 25% through healing montages, domestic bliss, and future-oriented endings that satisfy the romantic contract completely. The emotional journey follows a precise pattern that you must master. Survival transforms into resistance as the protagonist meets overwhelming alpha energy. Resistance becomes vulnerability when patience and protection prove genuine rather than manipulative. Vulnerability grows into trust through consistent actions that match romantic declarations. Trust blossoms into belonging as the protagonist accepts their worth and chooses to stay rather than run. Belonging settles into peace through domestic moments and community acceptance that promises lasting happiness. Each transition point requires specific emotional triggers. Survival breaks when safety appears real. Resistance cracks when vulnerability gets met with protection rather than exploitation. Trust forms when actions consistently match words over time. Script length demands precision. 4,500 to 6,500 words creates 25 to 40 minutes of audio content. 18 to 25 distinct scenes provide natural rhythm and breathing room. Each scene averages 200 to 400 words, with emotional powerhouse scenes extending to 500 or 700 words when hearts break or mend. Paragraph length stays between 3 to 6 sentences typically, with strategic single-sentence paragraphs delivering maximum impact. Time jumps, location changes, and emotional state shifts mark natural breaks. The format must be continuous prose paragraphs optimized for voiceover delivery, completely free of bullet points, headers, brackets, or meta-commentary. This foundation determines whether your Alpha King story joins the ranks of addictive romance that readers consume obsessively or falls into the forgotten pile of amateur attempts that miss the mark completely. Every successful Alpha King script follows this architecture because it mirrors the psychological patterns that create emotional addiction in romance readers. Master these frameworks, and you master the genre itself. Before we continue building your expertise, please take 2 seconds to like this video if you're finding this breakdown helpful. The next chapter will dive deep into character architecture, where you'll learn to craft protagonists and Alpha Kings that readers fall desperately in love with from the very first encounter. These aren't just attractive people with supernatural abilities. These are psychological archetypes engineered to trigger specific emotional responses that keep readers emotionally invested through every twist and challenge your story presents. Character architecture. Crafting irresistible protagonists and Alpha Kings. Character development in Alpha King stories isn't about creating realistic people. It's about engineering psychological archetypes that trigger specific emotional responses in your readers. Every successful protagonist and Alpha King follows precise patterns that tap into universal fantasies and fears, creating instant emotional investment that sustains through 40,000 words of romantic tension. Your protagonist must embody the wounded but brave archetype because this combination creates the perfect foundation for transformation. She begins in survival mode, often wearing borrowed clothes that signal her outsider status and hidden worth. The servant positioning isn't just plot convenience, it's dramatic setup for the eventual revelation that she belongs in a position of power and love. Her defensive behaviours mask deep worthiness that she cannot see but others recognise immediately. She believes herself to be nothing, broken, undeserving. This self-perception creates the emotional gap that your Alpha King will fill through patient recognition and fierce protection. Her wounds make her relatable. Her bravery makes her admirable. Her inability to see her own worth makes her transformation satisfying when love finally reveals her true value. The Alpha King operates on a completely different psychological frequency, and this contrast drives your romantic tension. He possesses supreme confidence that never wavers, even when faced with her resistance and fear. His immediate recognition of her worth creates the central irony of your story. While she sees nothing special about herself, he sees everything. His patience becomes the key that unlocks her trust. This isn't the Alpha who dominates through force or manipulation. This is the Alpha who waits, who proves himself through consistent actions rather than demanding submission. His protective instincts activate instantly, but his willingness to let her choose creates the safety she needs to eventually trust. His eyes become a focal point for description because they're windows to his recognition of her worth. Amber eyes that see through her disguise, silver eyes that reflect her true value, storm-coloured eyes that promise both danger and safety, gold eyes that recognize destiny when it appears before him. Antagonist construction requires understanding that external threats serve internal emotional purposes. Cruel family members represent the voices that convinced your protagonist she was worthless. Murderous lords embody the forces that kept her in survival mode. Shadow Court threats create urgency that pushes the relationship forward faster than normal circumstances would allow. But the real antagonist is always internal. It's her belief that she doesn't deserve love, safety, or belonging. External dangers provide plot momentum and opportunities for protection scenes, but the emotional stakes center on whether she'll accept her worth and choose to stay rather than run. Your antagonist's cruelty should be specific and personal, not generic evil, but targeted attacks on her sense of self-worth that the Alpha King must counter with equally specific declarations of her value. Supporting cast members serve as witnesses and validators of the protagonist's transformation journey. Pack dynamics provide found family structure where loyalty runs deeper than blood. Loyal guards offer protection that extends beyond the Alpha King's personal attention, proving this isn't just individual obsession, but community recognition. Wise mentors validate her journey from isolation to belonging by sharing their own stories of finding family through choice rather than birth. Each supporting character should reflect some aspect of her internal growth. The sister who needs rescue represents her protective instincts. The friend who accepts her immediately shows what unconditional love looks like. The elder who shares wisdom demonstrates that belonging comes through choice and patience rather than force or manipulation. Dialogue voice distinction creates immediate character recognition and drives romantic tension through every conversation. Your protagonist's speech patterns reveal her internal state through self-deprecating language that minimizes her importance and worth. She questions rather than declares. She deflects compliments and denies her own value. Her vocabulary stays grounded and practical because she's focused on survival rather than dreams. Contrast this with your Alpha King's unwavering certainty in every word he speaks. He declares rather than questions. He states facts about her worth that she cannot see. His signature phrases become emotional anchors throughout your story. You're everything. I've been looking for you. I'll wait however long you need. You're mine and you've always been mine. Stay when this is over, stay. These aren't just romantic declarations, they're identity statements that reshape how she sees herself through his eyes. The dialogue serves multiple functions simultaneously. Every conversation must advance plot while revealing character depth and building romantic tension. When he speaks, readers should feel his absolute certainty about her worth. When she responds, they should feel her struggle between wanting to believe and fearing disappointment. Supporting character dialogue provides external validation and moves plot forward while giving both main characters opportunities to demonstrate their true natures through interaction with others. Character chemistry develops through strategic vulnerability exchanges where both characters reveal wounds and fears. His confidence doesn't mean he lacks depth or past pain. His willingness to share his own losses creates the emotional reciprocity that allows trust to form. She needs to see that his patience comes from understanding rather than perfection. He needs to demonstrate that his protection stems from recognition of her strength rather than belief in her weakness. These character archetypes work because they satisfy fundamental human psychological needs. The wounded protagonist represents every reader who has ever felt invisible or unworthy. The patient Alpha King embodies the fantasy of unconditional acceptance and fierce protection. The cruel antagonist gives form to internal critics and external forces that diminish self-worth. The supporting found family provides hope that belonging is possible even when blood family fails. Master these character patterns and you master the emotional manipulation that keeps readers obsessively invested in your romantic outcomes. Every scene becomes an opportunity to deepen character understanding while building toward the inevitable moment when she finally accepts that she is, indeed, everything he has always known her to be. The next chapter will teach you how to orchestrate emotions through advanced pacing techniques and psychological triggers that create the addictive reading experience your audience craves. Emotional manipulation mastery, pacing, voice, and psychological triggers. Emotional manipulation in Alpha King stories is not about deceiving your readers. It's about understanding the precise psychological mechanisms that create deep emotional investment and using them strategically to craft an addictive reading experience. Every sentence you write should serve the emotional journey, every paragraph should escalate or release tension, and every scene should leave your readers craving the next moment of connection between your characters. Tone orchestration requires mastering 4 distinct emotional voices that work together to create the full spectrum of romantic experience. The protective tender voice appears during vulnerability exchanges and quiet domestic moments. This voice uses gentle language, soft imagery, and patient understanding to create safety and warmth. His voice was gentle as he spoke, steady and sure, like coming home after years of wandering. The dramatically urgent voice drives action scenes and external threats. Short sentences, kinetic verbs, and heightened stakes create momentum and danger. Her blood went cold. Every instinct screamed at her to run. The words landed like a physical blow. The achingly vulnerable voice handles internal emotional revelation and resistance. This voice dwells in sensation, uses flowing sentences, and explores the space between wanting and fearing. Something in her chest pulled tight, a golden thread she didn't understand, connecting her to this impossible man who saw too much, knew too much, wanted too much. The sensually charged voice manages attraction and romantic tension through heated glances, charged touch, and building desire. These voices must transition smoothly within scenes and chapters, creating emotional texture that keeps readers engaged through varying intensities. Literary device arsenal provides the technical foundation for emotional manipulation. Rule of 3 dominates your hooks, emotional descriptions, and dramatic moments because human psychology responds to patterns of 3. She didn't know he was the Alpha King. She didn't know he had been searching for her. She didn't know that seeing her would change everything. Anaphora creates rhythm and emphasis through strategic repetition. Every day she told herself she would leave. Every day she found a reason to stay. Every day the golden thread pulled tighter. Simile chains transform abstract emotions into visceral physical experiences. Fear shot through her like lightning, spreading through her chest like wildfire, settling in her stomach like a stone. Strategic repetition of key emotional phrases creates subliminal anchors throughout your story. Safe, home, mine, stay, choose. These words should appear every 400 to 600 words, creating subconscious connection between scenes and reinforcing central themes. Central motifs weave through your entire narrative like golden threads themselves. The warmth that spreads from his touch, the running that transforms into staying, the borrowed clothes that become royal robes. Each motif appearance should deepen meaning and emotional resonance. Tension-building mechanics require understanding exactly which phrases trigger specific emotional responses in your readers. She should have known better than to trust creates immediate dread and anticipation. Readers know something will go wrong, creating delicious anxiety. Something in her chest pulled tight activates the physical sensation of emotional connection. Every instinct she had developed screamed at her to run builds internal conflict between desire and survival. Her blood went cold delivers instant shock and fear. These phrases work because they connect to universal physical responses. Your readers have felt their blood run cold, have felt something pull tight in their chest, have had every instinct scream danger. You're borrowing their own sensory memories to create emotional authenticity. Timing becomes crucial. Deploy these phrases at scene transitions, before major revelations, and during moments of romantic escalation. Never overuse them within single scenes, but make sure each chapter contains at least 2 or 3 tension builders to maintain emotional momentum. Vulnerability calibration requires delicate balance between protagonist resistance and growing trust. Too much resistance becomes frustrating. Too little makes the journey feel unearned. Your protagonist must have logical reasons for her fear based on specific past experiences. His patience must feel genuine rather than manipulative, demonstrated through consistent actions over time rather than empty words. Alpha intensity needs boundaries. His possessiveness should feel protective rather than controlling. His certainty about their bond should inspire rather than overwhelm. External danger serves as pressure valve, creating urgency that pushes emotional development faster than normal circumstances would allow. But emotional stakes must always equal or exceed physical danger. The threat of losing him emotionally should terrify her more than any external enemy. Pacing rhythm control orchestrates the emotional experience like a symphony conductor. Every scene needs an emotional purpose. Tension spikes during first meetings, identity reveals, vulnerability exchanges, external threats, and romantic culmination moments. Breathing room comes through domestic moments, quiet conversations, gentle humour, and small victories. Escalation patterns build gradually through Acts 1 and 2, spike sharply in Act 3, climax intensely in Act 4, then settle into warm satisfaction through Act 5. Within individual scenes, start with grounding detail, build through conflict or connection, peak with emotional revelation or action, then transition smoothly into the next emotional state. Your sentences themselves control emotional pace. Short declarative sentences during tension create urgency and impact. He was there, alive, whole. Flowing compound sentences during reflection allow processing and understanding. Longer descriptive passages during romantic moments create intimacy and sensory immersion. Single-word fragments deliver maximum emotional punch: impossible, devastating, perfect, mine. Each paragraph should contain variety in sentence length and structure to create natural rhythm that mimics human emotional experience. Reader psychology responds to specific patterns that you can leverage for maximum impact. Anticipation creates more pleasure than resolution, so build slowly toward emotional payoffs. Intermittent reinforcement keeps readers addicted, so alternate tension with satisfaction. Recognition of universal experiences creates connection, so ground supernatural elements in familiar emotional territory. The promise of transformation satisfies deep psychological needs, so make sure your character growth feels both inevitable and earned. Master these techniques and you'll create the kind of emotional experience that readers remember long after finishing your story. They'll seek out more of your work because you've learned to satisfy their deepest psychological cravings for connection, worth, and belonging through carefully crafted fictional experiences. The next chapter will show you how to construct individual scenes that maintain this emotional intensity while advancing your plot and developing your characters through every interaction and moment of connection. Scene construction and dialogue. Integration. Building irresistible moments. Scene construction in Alpha King stories requires understanding that every scene must advance 3 elements simultaneously: plot progression, character development, and romantic tension. A scene that only moves plot forward without deepening character connection or escalating attraction fails to serve the romance genre. Master the formula for scenes that accomplish all 3 goals while maintaining the addictive pacing that keeps readers consuming your content obsessively. Scene structure formula operates on precise word count targets that optimize emotional impact. Your average scenes should contain 200 to 400 words, providing enough space for meaningful interaction without losing momentum. These shorter scenes handle plot advancement, setting establishment, supporting character interaction, and transition moments. Your emotional powerhouse scenes extend to 500 to 700 words when hearts break, trust forms, or romantic declarations reshape everything. These longer scenes deserve extended treatment because they carry the emotional weight of your entire story. Natural breaks occur through time jumps that advance relationship development, location changes that provide fresh settings for interaction, and emotional state shifts that signal character growth. Each scene break should feel inevitable rather than arbitrary, flowing from the emotional logic of your characters rather than artificial pacing requirements. Hook variations. Masterclass expands your opening repertoire beyond the foundational. She didn't know pattern. Dramatic proposal hooks create immediate high stakes through romantic declarations. "Just one dance?" she asked. The Alpha King pulled her close. "Every dance for the rest of your life." Power reversal openings establish protagonist strength before revealing alpha interest. She commanded the room until he walked in and everything shifted. Rescue scenario launches begin with immediate danger and protection. The assassin's blade stopped inches from her throat, caught by a hand that belonged to legends. Curse or challenge introductions create supernatural urgency. "Everyone who loves me dies," she whispered. The Alpha King smiled and pulled her closer. Let them try. Cinderella narrative beginnings establish class difference and worthiness themes. She was serving wine at the royal banquet when the Alpha King pulled out her chair. Each variation serves different story purposes, but must establish protagonist vulnerability, alpha power, and destiny recognition within the first 150 words. Dialogue integration techniques transform conversation from mere information exchange into emotional revelation and romantic tension building. Every line of dialogue should serve multiple functions: advancing plot, revealing character depth, building romantic connection, or creating conflict that propels story forward. Weave conversation naturally into narrative flow through action beats that show character behavior while they speak. He reached for her hand while speaking, and she noticed his fingers trembled slightly. His words were confident, but his touch revealed uncertainty. Balance internal monologue with external interaction so readers understand both spoken and unspoken communication. Her response was diplomatic, but internally she catalogued every detail of his face, wondering if amber eyes always held such intensity. Use dialogue to reveal character backstory without exposition dumps. When he mentioned the scars, her voice caught. "I know what it's like to survive things that should have killed you." Sensory description mastery creates visceral reader experience without purple prose excess. Layer physical sensations with emotional responses to ground supernatural elements in recognizable human experience. The golden thread wasn't visible, but she felt it like warmth spreading through her chest, familiar as her own heartbeat, yet foreign as his touch. Avoid overwhelming description by focusing on one or two senses per scene, while varying which senses receive attention. Touch during intimate moments. Sight for alpha eye descriptions and power displays. Sound for voice quality and heartbeats. Scent for pack recognition and attraction. Taste sparingly for kiss scenes and emotional moments. Strategic sensory details create atmosphere without slowing pace. The firelight caught the gold in his eyes, making them seem molten, dangerous, beautiful. Each sensory detail should serve emotional purpose rather than existing for mere description. Transition mastery maintains story momentum while indicating passage of time and emotional development. Signature transition markers provide smooth bridges between scenes. The days that followed were a whirlwind of new experiences and growing trust. 2 months later, she could hardly remember why she had been so afraid. On the third night, everything changed. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful, filled with quiet conversations and stolen glances. These phrases signal temporal progression while maintaining emotional continuity. Use recurring imagery to connect disparate scenes. The golden thread that pulled her toward him seemed stronger each morning, more impossible to ignore, more natural to follow. Reference emotional growth through behavioral changes. Where once she had flinched from his touch, now she leaned into his warmth without thinking. Transition sentences should look both backward and forward, acknowledging change while building anticipation for what comes next. Dialogue attribution requires minimalist approach that keeps focus on emotional content rather than speech tags. Use said, whispered, murmured as primary tags, adding voice quality descriptors like roughly or softly only for emotional emphasis. His voice was rough with emotion when he finally spoke. Integrate action, beats that reveal, character state, and advance physical interaction. She stepped back, putting distance between them before answering. He moved closer, eliminating the space she had created. Use dialogue formatting that embeds conversation naturally in prose paragraphs rather than breaking every exchange into separate lines. This maintains voiceover flow for audio content while preserving intimacy of written narrative. Scene purposes should rotate through your story to maintain variety and momentum. Revelation scenes where secrets emerge and characters share vulnerabilities. Protection scenes where external threats trigger alpha defensive responses. Domestic scenes where daily life interactions build intimacy and belonging. Conflict scenes where internal or external obstacles test relationship strength. Romantic escalation scenes where physical and emotional connection deepens. Resolution scenes where problems get solved and relationships advance. Each scene type requires different emotional tones and pacing strategies, but all must serve the central romantic arc while advancing plot elements. Master these scene construction techniques and you create individual story moments that readers remember and, quote, scenes that feel inevitable and satisfying while building toward the romantic climax that justifies every moment of tension and anticipation you have carefully constructed. The next chapter will teach you the technical requirements and professional standards that distinguish publishable Alpha King scripts from amateur attempts, ensuring your mastery translates into commercial viability. Script formatting and professional standards. Technical excellence. Professional Alpha King scripts succeed not just through compelling characters and emotional manipulation, but through precise technical execution that meets industry standards and optimizes reader experience. Every formatting choice serves the ultimate goal of creating seamless voiceover content that flows naturally while maintaining the romantic immersion your audience craves. Master these specifications and transform your creative vision into commercially viable content. Format Specifications Deep Dive requires understanding that Alpha King scripts exist for audio consumption, which demands different structural choices than traditional written fiction. Continuous prose paragraphs eliminate awkward pauses and breaks that interrupt voiceover flow. Every sentence must connect smoothly to the next, creating uninterrupted narrative stream that mimics natural storytelling rhythm. 3 to 6 sentence paragraphs provide optimal balance between substantial content and natural breathing patterns for voice actors. Longer paragraphs become difficult to deliver with proper emotional modulation. Shorter paragraphs feel choppy and fragmented. Strategic single-sentence paragraphs deliver maximum emotional impact at crucial moments. Impossible. That single word carried the weight of everything she had never dared to hope. These isolated sentences create dramatic pauses that emphasize revelation and emotional climax without requiring artificial formatting breaks. Eliminate all meta-commentary, bracketed directions, section headers, bullet points, and formatting distractions that break narrative immersion. Your script should read like polished fiction that requires no editing before recording. Timeline management systems handle temporal progression without disrupting story flow or reader engagement. Time jumps become opportunities for relationship development rather than mere plot convenience. The weeks that followed were a strange dance of growing trust and lingering fear signals substantial progression while maintaining emotional continuity. Handle compressed timelines by focusing on emotional milestones rather than calendar progression. Readers accept rapid relationship development when emotional beats feel earned and logical. Use transition markers that indicate passage without breaking narrative immersion. 2 months later, she could hardly remember why his touch had terrified her, creates temporal bridge while emphasizing character growth. Maintain believability by showing relationship stages rather than declaring them. Don't tell readers they trust each other. Show trust through actions, reactions, and internal monologue that demonstrate emotional evolution over time. Word count calibration ensures consistent delivery of target content length while maintaining story integrity. 4,500 to 6,500 words creates 25 to 40-minute audio content that satisfies audience expectations for complete romantic narrative. Distribute content across 18 to 25 scenes to provide natural rhythm and emotional pacing. Shorter scenes of 200 to 400 words handle transitions, plot advancement, and supporting character interaction. Longer scenes of 500 to 700 words carry emotional weight through vulnerability exchanges, romantic escalation, and climax moments. Balance detailed emotional scenes with efficient plot advancement to maintain momentum without sacrificing depth. Track cumulative word count throughout writing process rather than forcing arbitrary scene lengths. Some emotional beats require extended treatment. Others demand concise efficiency. Let content determine structure while maintaining overall target range. Audience engagement integration positions, reader interaction opportunities without breaking story immersion or disrupting romantic tension. Mid-script engagement prompts should feel natural rather than jarring interruptions. Before we continue with their story, please take 2 seconds to like this video if you're enjoying this romantic journey connects audience action with narrative investment. Position engagement requests at natural story, breaks such as act transitions or major revelations where brief pause feels appropriate. Craft compelling closing, CT, as that maintain warm storyteller tone while encouraging community building. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments and share our thoughts about this love story creates geographic connection and discussion invitation. Maintain story immersion by avoiding hard sell language or multiple conflicting requests that distract from romantic resolution. Quality control checklist provides systematic approach to ensuring professional standards before publication. Signature vocabulary integration confirms your story contains the emotional anchors readers expect. Safe, home, mine, stay, choose should appear naturally throughout narrative without forced insertion. Motif consistency verifies that central symbols like golden thread, warmth, running versus staying appear regularly and meaningfully. Emotional arc completion ensures protagonist transformation from survival to belonging feels complete and satisfying. Technical specification compliance confirms continuous prose formatting, appropriate word count, and proper scene distribution. Commercial romance requirement satisfaction includes happily ever after guarantee, romantic relationship primacy, and emotional satisfaction that fulfills genre expectations. Check for overuse of specific phrases or words that might feel repetitive. Verify smooth transitions between scenes and acts. Confirm that external plot elements serve romantic development rather than overwhelming emotional focus. Revision strategy employs systematic approach to improving emotional impact and technical precision. First pass focuses on overall emotional arc and character development consistency. Does protagonist growth feel logical and earned? Do alpha declarations match his patient protective behavior? Does external conflict serve internal romantic tension? Second pass addresses pacing and scene flow. Are emotional beats properly distributed? Do scenes transition smoothly? Is romantic tension maintained throughout? Third pass examines technical formatting and language precision. Are paragraphs optimally structured for voiceover delivery? Do sentences flow naturally when read aloud? Are signature vocabulary and phrases integrated appropriately? Final pass confirms commercial viability. Does story satisfy romance reader expectations? Will audience engagement elements feel natural? Does ending provide complete emotional satisfaction? Professional standards distinguish amateur attempts from publishable content through attention to technical details that serve reader experience. Industry formatting requirements exist because they optimize audience engagement and commercial viability. Readers have been conditioned to expect specific structural elements that signal professional quality. Meeting these expectations allows your creative content to succeed without technical barriers limiting audience reception. Consistency across all technical elements creates cohesive reader experience that feels polished and intentional. Every formatting choice should serve the dual purposes of optimizing voiceover delivery and maintaining romantic immersion. When technical execution matches creative vision, your Alpha King scripts achieve the professional quality that distinguishes successful content from amateur efforts. Master these technical requirements and you possess the complete toolkit for creating Alpha King scripts that meet industry standards while delivering the addictive emotional experiences your audience demands. The final chapter will synthesize everything you have learned through complete application, demonstrating how to transform concept into finished script using real-time creation process with one of the proven Alpha King scenarios. Complete application from concept to finished script. Theory transforms into mastery through practical application. You have learned the frameworks, character archetypes, emotional manipulation techniques, scene construction methods, and professional formatting standards that create addictive Alpha King content. Now watch these elements combine in real time as we create a complete script from concept selection through final optimization, demonstrating how every technique works together to produce commercially viable romantic content. Concept selection process requires strategic evaluation of emotional potential rather than surface appeal. From the Alpha King titles collection, consider she was serving wine at the royal banquet. The Alpha King pulled out her chair. This premise contains immediate class contrast, public setting for dramatic revelation, service positioning that establishes worthiness themes, and alpha recognition moment that promises transformation. The hook writes itself. She didn't know that the man watching her serve wine to nobles was the Alpha King himself. She didn't know that every stumble, every nervous glance, every moment of graceful service under pressure had caught his attention completely. And she certainly didn't know that when she approached his table, her life as a servant would end forever. 3 sentences establish dramatic irony, hint at destiny collision, and promise complete transformation. The public setting provides witnesses for eventual claiming scene. Service role creates immediate vulnerability and worthiness, questioning that alpha recognition will resolve. Real-time script creation demonstrates complete scene construction using established frameworks. Scene 1 opens with sensory grounding and character establishment. The great hall blazed with golden light from 1,000 candles, their warmth doing nothing to ease the cold knot of fear in Lyra's stomach. She balanced the silver wine pitcher carefully, knowing that one mistake would cost her the position she desperately needed. 3 sentences establish setting, introduce protagonist through internal state, and create immediate tension through stakes. Her borrowed servant's dress felt too loose in some places, too tight in others, marking her as clearly as a brand. This detail reinforces outsider status while foreshadowing transformation. The nobles barely glanced at her as she moved between tables, which suited her perfectly. Invisibility meant safety. Invisibility meant survival. Short declarative sentences emphasize her psychological state while building toward contrast with alpha recognition. But at the high table, amber eyes tracked her every movement with an intensity that made her hands shake. This introduces alpha presence without identity reveal, creating tension through unknown attention. Scene 1 accomplishes protagonist introduction, setting establishment, stakes creation, and alpha presence hint in exactly 237 words. Live problem-solving addresses common writing challenges through strategic choices rather than arbitrary solutions. Maintaining character voice consistency requires remembering her psychological state informs every reaction. When alpha speaks, her response must reflect servant conditioning, not modern confidence. Your Majesty becomes automatic because survival depends on proper deference. Balancing exposition with action means weaving backstory into present moment rather than stopping narrative for explanation. She had learned to move silently through necessity. Not training provides character background while maintaining scene momentum. Handling romantic tension progression requires building through meaningful moments rather than instant attraction. His voice was gentler than she had expected, from a king creates contrast with her fears while suggesting his true nature. Avoiding clichés while meeting genre expectations means finding fresh angles on familiar elements. Instead of standard love at first sight, focus on recognition of worth despite disguise. His eyes saw past the ill-fitting dress to something she didn't know existed. Quality assessment process evaluates completed scenes against established success criteria. Emotional impact measurement confirms readers will feel immediate investment in protagonist outcome and alpha interest. Does opening create sympathy for her situation? Does alpha attention feel inevitable rather than convenient? Technical specification compliance verifies continuous prose structure, appropriate paragraph length, and natural voiceover flow. Commercial viability assessment examines genre, expectation satisfaction, and audience engagement potential. Does premise promise satisfying romantic resolution? Will readers want to continue this story? Hook effectiveness analysis confirms dramatic irony establishment and transformation promise. Do readers understand more about situation than protagonist? Is change clearly inevitable? Character consistency evaluation ensures behavior matches established psychological profiles. Does her nervousness feel authentic? Does alpha recognition feel genuine rather than superficial? Genre tag integration optimizes content discoverability through strategic category selection and hashtag deployment. Primary tags include paranormal romance, fated mates, alpha wolf shifter, and power imbalance romance for core genre identification. Secondary tags add rescue romance, hurt comfort, found family, Cinderella narrative, and protective hero for specific trope targeting. Tertiary tags incorporate slow burn to claiming worthy heroine, patient alpha, and public claiming for detailed reader preference matching. Platform-specific optimization requires understanding audience behavior patterns. YouTube viewers respond to emotional hooks in titles and thumbnails. Podcast listeners prefer episode descriptions that promise specific romantic payoffs. Written content platforms favor keyword-rich descriptions that signal story elements clearly. Final CTA optimization creates compelling subscription requests and community engagement prompts that maintain story immersion while driving channel growth. Effective closing maintains warm storyteller tone while encouraging specific actions. Where are you listening from? I love hearing from romance lovers around the world, so let's meet in the comments and share what drew you to Alpha King stories. This geographic engagement builds community while inviting personal connection. If these stories bring you comfort, escape, or just pure romantic satisfaction, please consider subscribing. It's free, it helps more people discover these tales, and it supports me in creating the romantic content we all crave. This value proposition explains subscriber benefits while maintaining focus on audience satisfaction rather than creator need. Strategic timing places CTA after emotional resolution but before final romantic image, ensuring audience satisfaction while maximizing engagement opportunity. Complete Mastery Synthesis demonstrates how every element learned throughout this masterclass combines into professional Alpha King script creation. Character archetypes provide emotional foundation. 5-act structure ensures satisfying progression. Emotional manipulation techniques create addictive reader experience. Scene construction maintains momentum and tension. Professional formatting optimizes delivery and commercial viability. Together, these elements transform creative impulses into systematically crafted content that meets both artistic vision and commercial requirements. You now possess the complete toolkit for creating Alpha King scripts that satisfy readers, meet industry standards, and build engaged audiences through emotionally compelling romantic narratives that readers will seek obsessively and recommend enthusiastically to fellow romance lovers.